Hey there, good morning. It's Lotus at Art of Sacred Embodiment. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about foundation and the foundation that I have found is required to really establish a strong footing, a strong grounding to support the awakening process and the embodiment process that if you're watching my videos, you are probably already on that path and wanting more, right? Wanting to continue to expand and grow and shift and change and all that beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I find with clients often, as well as myself in the past, as well as friends, there's kind of this thing that we want more, right? We start to go through our awakening process, and then the world opens up in a whole new way. There's a whole other world that opens up. And there's this way that, well, but I want to do that. Well, I want to be able to hear my guides, and I want to be able to have my third eye wide open. I want to be able to raise my kundalini, right? So there's all of these things that we start to learn about, and then it becomes this wanting, and most of the time we want it now, right? There's this impatience because it all feels very exciting. So what I've learned, maybe sometimes the hard way, is that there has to be foundational phases. And one of the things that, especially when we're working with embodiment, that for me has been, how do we get ourselves in a grounded space and place? And that grounding then supports everything that is meant to turn on for us, so to speak. Some people have certain clairs, right? Those gifts, those powers like clairaudience or clairvoyance, clairsentience, that comes kind of naturally, because that's part of their blueprint. So it might be an early coding that is turned on even before they begin their awakening journey. And not everybody is going to have the same faculties activated at the same times, or even have strengths in those same faculties. For instance, I am not very visual. So as far as, clairvoyance, I'm not strong in clairvoyance. My strengths are in clairaudience, so I hear guidance, right? I have conversations with my guides, with my highest self. I have like a claircognizance, I have a deep knowing about things, or clairsentience, which is very sensory oriented. I feel it throughout my body. And there was a point where I wanted, well, why can't I be clairvoyant? Why can't I have better sight? Why can't I, have these amazing, colorful visuals that people get? And it's not that I never do, but it's not my strength. And it's not the go-to of my soul. It's not the way in which I am to learn and perceive, at least at this stage and phase. It may or may not ever turn on. So when we're coming from an embodied perspective, we're able to work from the full spectrum of our humanity, our human self, all the way up into the ethereal realms. But if we're only operating in the ethereal realms, we can't actually integrate and grok and embody the wisdom, the consciousness, the frequencies, those aspects of us that we are actually interacting with in the higher dimensions. So as we're moving forward, we're hitting the age of Aquarius, right? November 19th. And we're beginning a whole new cycle on this planet. And this cycle is going to quicken even more our spiritual evolution. And so what I wanted to do is, I'm probably going to do a little bit more of these, right? This is all the same, this whole life wellness, whole being wellness, relational intimacy. Because we need to establish these deeper levels of intimacy and our wholeness really before we can anchor in the higher frequencies and information and realms with a more solid integrity, to where we're actually drawing forth the frequencies, the highest frequencies that we can. And that's going to be different depending on what we have or have not worked through and integrated within ourselves. A lot of us can channel or bring in all sorts of, all sorts of information or different beings or different energies, all of that. But for me, the trajectory that I really work with is, I want to be fine-tuning and refining my own being so that I can access the higher and higher frequencies. So our spiritual journey is not just for experiences. That isn't really what it's about. It's about anchoring in our wholeness and our divinity. Very different than living from experience to experience to experience and not actually knowing who we are, the truth, the depth, the expansiveness of who we are as divine beings living on this planet within this physical and our own energetic form. So when clients or people say, well, I want to experience this, why can't I experience this? And I usually say, well, you may be able to, but why is that important? First and foremost, right? What is it that draws you to that? Because there's information in what we're drawn to. That's important, right? It's important for us to understand the whys and what our motivation is. So if I am wanting, let's say, to be, have more clairvoyance, well, why is that important to me? What is that saying to me? What is that giving to me? So at different phases of my own journey, it may have meant different things. I don't actually have that need anymore, but sometimes I still wish that I could, because I feel like I could be of assistance in specific ways to clients or, in my own life, but it hasn't been necessary because I gain information in different ways. So what is the motivation, right? And a lot of times, in the beginning, we think that these faculties or powers are what means we're spiritual, or we're doing the work, and we are. But it's still at this early phase if it's just to have an experience. Once we start recognizing that, oh, it's because that is a part of my connection to divine source, to life, whatever God is for us, to my soul presence. And because that is a way that my soul will be able to guide and support me and my greater purpose. So if you can start to see, it doesn't have as much to do with just having an experience. It's much deeper than that. It's much more about, because it's who I am. But if we're not moving along the incremental foundational steps, then all of our experiences are just sort of like spinning out there. And we go from one to the other because it's almost like eating junk food, right? It's like, oh, it tastes good in the moment. It feels good in the moment. But like good, healthy, nourishing food, right? Our body assimilates it. Our cells and our tissues and, everything gets that deep, deep nourishment. And it becomes us. And then we become more healthy and vital. We become more fortified and strong, right? We maintain a sense of agility, flexibility, and then as we grow older, we still feel youthful. So that's very different. And it's the same way on our spiritual journey. So what I usually really encourage everybody to do, right, and this is going to be even more important moving forward, we have to learn how to ground. So I call this sacred centering and sacred grounding. Meaning it's an ongoing practice, just like meditation, but meditation, depending on the kind of technique that you're utilizing or, how deep your meditations are you only doing guided meditations from an external source? Which that's fine. But ultimately, meditation is to bring us inside, into the depths of our own solitude, silence, deep, deep stillness, quieting and supporting the nervous system, over time allowing the brain and our thinking to dissipate or at least come back here in the background. And this doesn't happen overnight for most people. I just saw 11:11. Was that? No, it was 13:13. So it takes that knowing, that understanding. Why am I doing this? What is the bigger picture of what I'm doing along my spiritual journey? Because if we're only listening to external sources, we aren't going to strengthen those muscles and faculties that drop us all the way into our sacred center, to the core of our own being, into that nothingness. Guess what arises from there? That is where the connections that we're seeking naturally and organically begin to awaken. We don't have to force them. We don't have to push them. We don't have to cling to them. They naturally, because we have created a foundation to enter into that new sacred realm, that part of our sacredness from inside of us, and then allow that to bloom into our own inner teachings. So the sacred centering and sacred grounding, becomes, for me, that is foundational. Come into your body. First, realize you aren't in your body most of the time, right? The more thoughts that you have, the more layers of thoughts that you have, the more that you're highly active here or you're out of your body, and your energy fields are normally distorted, imbalanced, have tears in them, have rips in them. They aren't operating from that coherent inner integrity and outer integrity of the field. So the sacred centering and sacred grounding also gives us that connection, yes, to the earth, but also to our own inner sanctuary, where we can come and feel peace, feel a sense of bliss, where we can hold joy, right? Where we can know love on a deep, deep level. And where we begin to know our own divinity, our own connection to divine source. It keeps our field stronger. It helps to pull down the frequencies coming onto the planet that we've talked about, whether they're from the sun, right? Different expressions of the cosmos, our own highest self. So that's another area that I'm not going to go into right now, but our highest self is there are many highest selves. And this is part of the ethereal, right? This is part of the multi-dimensional access that we have, and it's a level of know thyself. And those aspects of us, they are inviting us to integrate and embody their frequency and consciousness. But we have to have a foundation with which to do that. We have to be, our system has to be operating in a state of coherence, like a hose, right? If you've got a kinked hose, the water is going to get bunched up, and it's not going to flow through effortlessly. We are a large kinked hose. We probably are many kinked hoses. Every unresolved issue that we have is a kink in our flow of energy. And those kinks happen in the external field as well as our physical field. So anything that tries to embody and come in is going to have difficulty. The more unresolved, karmic baggage that we have, which is why part of the grounding is when we get into our body, we become more aware of, whoa, this is something I need to resolve. This really needs healing. And I like the word healing in the early stages for sure, because to me it calls forth the energy of tending to and loving and bringing nurturance that probably is lacking to begin with. So I know a lot of people don't like the word healing as we move forward, or as of late, I guess, because they think it, says that we're broken or we're unworthy, or, somehow there's something wrong with us. I don't look at it quite that way. I believe that we're always remembering who we are, but healing for me is the acknowledgement that I carry wounds. I carry distortions in my field. So it's a way for me of like being accountable to that, and recognizing that while I may forever be one with source in this plane at this time, I still have some work to do to bring back the places where I have separated from source, where I have forgotten, where over lifetimes and lifetimes there's been wounding and operating from less than my true expressions. So I use healing for sure in the early stages, because we need to tend to that. We need to take accountability. We need to become aware. We need to be responsible. And part of being responsible along our journey is healing. So not just for us, but like our individual healing supports the healing of the whole, because it starts to change the frequency. It's that ripple effect, right? The butterfly's wings affect the energy hundreds of miles away. So that was a segue. So our highest self are these fractals of our soul. And these fractals of light are higher frequency, and they carry our wholeness. They carry the the qualities, the consciousness, the expressions of, we could say, our ancient past and future, right? So I like to call that like our ancient future. And this is where the dimensions, everything is happening all at once. Who do I want to call home? Who is ready? Who's tapping on my shoulder saying, oh, my child, my dear one, I am you, you are me. I am here now. It is time now to remember me as you and you as me. That's hard for them to get through, right? When we are not grounded, anchored, stabilized in a clear, coherent field. And when we are, then we can begin to know thyself in our divinity, or, in our higher aspects, in those expressions of, our more expanded self, whatever way you like to hold that. Not everybody I know wants the word divinity, or, so address it as fits for you, because this is your journey. I use the word divinity because that is what makes sense and resonates with my own heart and soul. So we're wanting to anchor those frequencies into our body, literally down into our root, down into the earth plane. This is bringing heaven to earth, and the more of us that bring heaven to earth, we uplift earth into heaven, right? So we're uplifting the frequency as we're actually drawing down the higher frequencies. Our container, our physical vessel, needs to be able to hold these energies in order to embody the fullness of who we are and live from that place and space. So sacred centering and sacred grounding, I have very specific practices that I work with clients, especially when they first come in, to really get into that sense and feeling. One of the things that personally I've been doing more and more as well, obviously I utilize the earth and the trees and the planets and everything as my allies, right? As my support system, as part of my guides, in order to keep me in that harmonious grounding, because we're not talking about being static. We're not talking about clinging on, because life is shifting through us and all around us all the time. So it's allowing life and being aware of how life with a capital L is expressing it, showing itself, and how can I be in tandem with that. That's a very grounding way to move with the shifts right now, and to know ourselves in those relationships. Another way is really rooting with the trees, right? Really utilizing that power of the trees and the earth, that deep heart resonance of the earth. Because the Schumann resonance is doing a lot of spiking, so we want to go deep enough down into the earth so that there's that stable point, right? So it's almost like we're anchored, but like a tree, we're the higher limbs and the branches, but we're deeply rooted and we're centered within the trunk, right? So those are some of the ways in which I work with this. The other way that I've been really incorporating lately is I take many increments through the day. Increments, spaces. I take timeouts. In increments throughout my day to just stop. In between, let's say, videos, in between clients, in between going out and running an errand, and then I come back, because normally we go out and we run errands and we're intermingling with all sorts of other energies. We can get scattered, tired, overwhelmed. So when I come back home, I lay down or I go outside and I sit under the tree or in the sun and I just stop and I breathe and I consciously call all of me back, right? All that I can bring home, ground it into the earth. I breathe. Maybe I take a quick little cat nap, but I do it consciously by calling all of me back into my sacred center and sacred grounding, so that I can move through my day refreshed, right? So I can reboot over and over again and allow myself to feel that sense of energy and vitality. And if that isn't working, then I try to just rest, I choose grounding. I choose my centering, because that is what gives me everything else in my life. Movement. For me, I love on the floor movement. Slow flow movement with calming music to soothe my nervous system, to get me out of my head. So we all have our ways, but ultimately we have to learn how to come into our own deep level stillness, deep level silence and solitude. That is where the no thing is, and that no thing is everything, and that is a window and a doorway that opens up to our organic spiritual expansion, wisdom, higher connection, and grounding and discernment. What are we accessing? Who are we talking to? Super important, right? That we are aware, that we can discern the subtleties of frequency, of the ethereal and dimensional realms. And that comes from knowing your own energy, your own frequency, and being able to know what feels coherent, what holds the frequencies, and what the frequencies of love and joy and wisdom and compassion and truth, those are frequencies. So there's a lot of subtleties involved in traversing a deep, centered and integrated and embodied path which organically unfolds us in the true and right unfoldment of our soul in connection with Divine Source and our own higher selves. So I hope that this is helpful. The next talk I'm going to be doing is going to be on the next level foundation, which is all about self-love. And these are the two cornerstones of that upward trajectory, which is actually, we want it to be an inward trajectory as well. All right. Many blessings. Have a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Be well.